Hola, hola, and buenos dias, GnGs. My name is Trekkw2ks. Welcome to another episode of Week in Crypto, brought to you here on the Gentleman of Crypto YouTube channel, aka the Gentleman of Crypto Network. And if you don't know, the basic idea is I go over some crypto-related news stories that took place between Friday and Saturday, and I filter them out via no price talk. And I give my interpretation of context to how I understand them. That's the bottom line of how Weekend Crypto works, right? And so I got a number of stories. This definitely is going to be me trying to keep it within a 50-minute window. So I'm not even going to be reading as much as I usually do because there's definitely more stories. And as I tell y'all, I got to be filtering the stuff down from what initially catches my eye into like, here are some things that y'all might find relevant to what's going on with what y'all are trying to do in this space. And so before I jump into the stories, I do want to say thanks to the folks who are coming back. I appreciate y'all. Thanks for the engagement in the live stream talks in the morning. Thanks for when I see y'all over on with King at the 10ish timeline. And thanks for the folks who are just discovering me. Hopefully something I say, piques your interest, encourages you to explore the other videos that I've done, as well as get you to come back next Monday. How about that? So yeah, let's get into these stories, y'all. All right, so here we are into this first story. So Monero's community wallet loses all funds after attack. And so basically, I don't know if to say somebody was slipping because there was only two people who had access to this hot wallet that they had the community wallet on, and it was running on a laptop that was running Linux and something else. So it's just like either somebody was sponsored or somebody was contracted out or somebody was on the inside doing this. Not sure, but for the amount of time that has passed since this story came out, no one actually knows yet, or at least it's not being publicly pushed out there like that, how they got caught slipping, but they got. Sorry to hear for that. Community policing, if somebody knows something, because this actually was being used to help the folks who are part of the Monero community. So somebody might want to try to, help out with that. Jumping into this next story here. So when I first read the title, I thought this was Georgia the state. No, this is Georgia the country. So Georgia National Bank picks Ripple as CBDC tech partner out of 9 firms. I'm not even going to go into the other 9 firms. The point being here is if you're an XRP fan, you already know what's going on. If you're a Ripple fan, you already know what's going on. Ripple has been going outside of the US to make sure they build, not bilateral, but they build nation state level partnerships where they're going directly to the country's like finance minister person and being like, hey, we got the tech side of it, y'all trying to do the CBDC thing, we could help y'all with the back end of it. So arguably what is also I would take this as a confirmation to something I said a while ago about how we're going to have different iterations of CBDCs. I got another story that follows up around with this one as far as like how things will look down the pike. Not well, yeah, kind of down the pike, but the point being is there will be different versions of CBDCs, and as far as the back end of who's the tech stack for them, that's going to vary too. So it's going to be whether it's the central bank of a company, of a country, or is it a group of countries together? Is it that like example of how we have well, let me not run down that rabbit hole. Point being is Ripple arguably is on a winning streak by going outside of the US and making these direct partnerships with countries and kingdoms and jurisdictions. Just saying. All right, jumping into this next story. This one had me cracking up actually when I read it actually. So it basically goes, the Federal Reserve threatens to sue Bitcoin Magazine. Why would the Federal Reserve want to sue Bitcoin Magazine? Simple, because Bitcoin Magazine is using their logo and their tagline and as parody merch. And so basically, the Federal Reserve of Chicago is being sour about it and acting like a little you know what. And so they basically hit them with a cease and desist letter. And the funny part is the head dude took the letter and then he wrote back to them and was like, well, thanks for checking out our merch. We appreciate, but do understand, we don't agree with your position on how you're moving around in the space and trying to push the regulation and what you're trying to do with CBDCs. And so again, this goes to show, one, there's going to be the trend, I think, is already indicating that there's going to be different CBDCs. I commend the people over at Bitcoin Magazine for standing their ground as it is right now. My question is, what happens in the next coming months or year or so, especially if, lawyers be lawyers, right? So somebody went to the legal department, was like, hey, send out a letter to them. And it was like, all right, cool, we got it, boom, we did it, right? So now the pushback being, is this the only way that the Federal Reserve of Chicago would actually look to, quote, threaten, or be aggressive in their stance of their brand protection? Is this the only way that they would actually fight against the magazine, Bitcoin Magazine? I don't know. Time will tell us how this plays out. But I do wonder if, there will be other repercussions for them taking this stance now. And I don't wrong them for taking it. To be clear, I do not wrong Bitcoin Magazine for taking it. I do hope that other platforms would look to be more supportive. Although we already see how it works in this space, where like when certain agencies start kicking up dust or start, making shoulder taps, the space doesn't, especially the known companies in this space, they don't stick together like that when it comes to actually fighting any of the governmental agencies / departments. Usually what you see happen is they go into court alone, and then everyone be looking at them from the sidelines. Case in point, what happened to Odyssey? Case in point, what happened to what did I look at the other day? Who remembers Ether Delta as an exchange? That dude had to go into court alone. Granted, he paid his fine and then went about his business, but nonetheless. All right, I'm gonna jump on to this next story. So, Treasury sanctions money launderer using virtual currency to move funds for Russian elites. Oh, I messed that up. All right, so here we are with this story. U.S. Treasury sanctions money launderer for using virtual currency to move funds for the bear elites. What's the other one? I forgot what the other thing. I told y'all I'm trying to stay off of certain things, as far as like not having it be that stuff that I say is why the channel get dinged. All right. You see what the word is. I'm hoping you understand. And so the thing about the story that caught my attention was this. Remember, I said just like 2 episodes back, about how we should see more cases pop up about people getting charged with things when it comes to dealing with crypto and fiat. And it doesn't even matter in some cases if it's a USD thing. Now, granted, this is the Treasury Department enforcing sanctions on an individual person because they did business with other people. So the short of it is this. The lady was basically a middle person who helped people relocate to other regions outside of, the bear country. And her business was like in Europe and the Middle East and some other places. And the US is like, oh, well, you did business that is, quote, illegal with this person that is on our no-no list. So we're going to stop your business. And that's basically what happened. Here's the thing that got me with this is, it's not saying that she's arrested. It's not saying that she's under investigation. Although for the number of stories I've read about this, it doesn't seem like anyone really understands the details of like, what is her current state of things? Is she under house arrest? Is she under investigation? Is she being put out on Interpol? That's not even in the stories of the things that I've read. But the point being is, expect, again, granted this is at the international level in relation to sanctions, but other variations of this kind of story will be popping up more, in my opinion, based on what I've seen past wise. All right. Other thing to note, as I always keep saying, link for this will be in the descriptions. Link for these stories will be in the descriptions. And I got 2 extra links in here that when I get to the stories, I'll explain what the link stuff is about with them. So that way you can definitely go through and add it into how you do your due diligence. And I'm going to keep saying this to y'all. Don't just take my word for this stuff, because this is my interpretation of how I understand this stuff. Yeah, I've been in the space for a minute, but it doesn't mean what I understand and how I understand it and what I'm doing in this space actually applies to what you're doing in this space and how you understand it. I'm not a CPA. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not your financial advisor. I'm not anybody's financial advisor. But so I say all of this stuff and I give you these articles that you can go and look at for yourself, and being able to say, does this make sense for me and what I either want to do or what I am doing, or, what I would like to do down the road? I don't know. But I honestly think that, considering how the space is growing, changing, evolving, some of the stuff to me is worth paying attention to. But that's just me though. So nonetheless, DOJ seizes 30,000 ETH. It was actually other crypto besides this, but depending on what news platform you read, they focused over one over the other, or they might have just like talked about everything all under one umbrella. Basic story is this, and when I first read the story, I thought dude got arrested. They didn't have access to the crypto, and so he's sitting in jail, and then he does the dumbest thing that anybody arguably can do is he talks to someone else who came to visit him and talked on the phone about how they need to move the crypto. So of course, what happened? The phone lines is tapped. They figured out, oh, that's where he got the stuff at. All right, bet this is how we're going to do it. Here's the thing to understand. And again, link for this will be in the description. You can read it. Yo, if you Google the dude's name and you see him, you look and you're just like, wait, this dude? Like, I mean, you probably could have been smarter about it, but you don't look like you actually did the smart side of it. Here's why I share this story. Because whether you're a criminal or a law-abiding citizen, right? If something happens to you and you did not set into place a system or at least leave information that would allow the people who you would hope or want or entrust to access these financial resources, if you don't set none of that up, like when something happens to you, whether you get arrested, whether you get sick, whether you end up in a coma, whether you can't talk anymore, whether, whatever happens, guess what? No one knows how to access the stuff. And when they don't know how to access the stuff, like your stuff just gets lost. And in his particular case, so it isn't even that they got access to it. It was that they didn't actually have access, but because he was talking to who he was talking to over the jail phones, over the prison phones, they found out where everything was, and then now they're filing the official paperwork through the Treasury or some other department to be able to get the stuff, to get all of the money that they basically made. And apparently it was like over 50 million, which arguably, if he didn't have an illegal enterprise that he was heading with the other two friends, and the way the charges read, they turned on him because he got the heaviest charge, like 20 years, and they were like below 15 and the other guy was 10. But the idea that, what was I saying? They didn't, because it was an illegal enterprise, like case in point, look what happened to Arthur Hayes. Arthur Hayes made dumb money. That man ain't spent not 1 minute in jail. And remember what I've been saying about the whole thing of like, once you touch USD, that's when you go into court one way or the other, regardless. Now, the question is, how much did you make? And did you make enough to pay the fine and go about your business? King says 30 million. I'm going to caveat and say 30 million minimum is what you got to have to be able to be like, here, leave me alone. But if you're doing an illegal, like this case in point operation, you better have way more than that and somehow figure out how to have it that money is separated to be able to deal with the legal fees. And they can't freeze that money that would go to the lawyer, because that's what it always boils down to. The feds will always use the thing of freezing your money in order for you to not be able to fight at a leveled legal playing field. Anywho, I'm taking too long on that. I'm jumping off to this next story. I'm just saying though, be careful out there, folks, because whether what is going on right now? Why is it literally didn't do this to me before, and now it's doing this to me? What the hell? Come on. All right, well, I'm going to just do this part here. It literally didn't do this to me. So BRC20 updates to shield. What happened? Okay. BRC20 update to shield Bitcoin users from token theft. Now, this title is actually very, very, very misleading. This is actually for my techie folks. This particular story is for my techie folks. The short of it is this. Someone came up with this BRC20 thing, which basically is a new fractionalization process that they are arguing should be implemented, and it's based on the Ordinals protocol. If you know how the Ordinals protocol works, the Ordinals stuff is basically at the Satoshi level, and it does a thing where it gives like a unique identifier to the Satoshi and through this inscription process. I'm not going to get lost in the technicals on that, but I'm going to make the point of, I would argue that we are following a trend in the Bitcoin space in particular, of where we feel, and not we as in all of us, but a number of folks in the space feel that they have to make Bitcoin into a Swiss Army knife. And there's a video that Andreas Antonopoulos did a couple of weeks ago where he breaks down the whole thing of like why we don't implement a protocol change or upgrade that would be able to stop spamming on the Bitcoin protocol or stop ordinals from working on Bitcoin protocols. And I might not be 100% understanding the full feature function technical application of this, but from what I do think I understand, this to me is one of those like, I hear you as how you're arguing for security, but it also makes me feel like for the security that you're arguing for by implementing this BRC20, we would lose the what's the thing called the censor what is it oh, what is the word when they say Bitcoin is censorship resistance. I argue, and for the techier folks out there, the folks who really dig in on the Bitcoin protocol and some of the other stuff, comments is open. I'm in here with the live chat on you. If I'm missing something, please bring it to my attention, because I feel like this is arguably a slippery slope into Bitcoin losing its oh God, I just had the word and I forgot it, but into Bitcoin losing its censorship resistance because of trying to add in a feature that will quote counter something else that on face value sounds good. I'm not going to say it doesn't, but my thing is, what are we giving up for this? And even if it's not a matter of what are we giving up today, it's like, well, what would this be down the road? How could this be used against the the basic pillars of the Bitcoin protocol, as in the white paper, right? That's how I'm breaking this down. And again, if you're interested in this, link will be in the description, so you could definitely follow up on the story. Again, I highly encourage y'all to do your level of diligence. I will admit, this story is more for my techie folks than it is for the general audience, okay? Now, jumping in on this next one. So Yuga Labs and Magic Eden announced a new Ethereum marketplace to protect creators' royalties. All right. So there's a couple of things that come with this. One, so Yuga and Eden partnering for this. It's going to be on the Ethereum blockchain, as you see. And I think that Yuga has the deeper pockets compared to Eden. But the other thing to note about this is OpenSea has a lot going on right now. Case in point, they laid off like, I think 12 or 20% of their folks last year. Now it comes out same time last year, they about to lay off like 50% of their folks, and they founders talking about, oh, we're going to move in a new direction and we're going to be able to do blah, blah, blah better. I got another story that follows up with what they're doing with the Polygon network thing. I'm not going to run into that just yet. But the point being is that this to me is positioning, in that the two big players right now are Blur and OpenSea. The funky thing is, based on some of the other stuff I seen earlier today, Blur did more transactional by like volume money wise than OpenSea has done, and they've been going through this whole back and forth thing. What Yuga Labs and Eden is talking about, here's where my catch-22 is for this. And I think this is like more of a trend question for me. Is what is going on with the creator royalties, is that going to be a staple thing? So what Yuga Labs and Eden is saying is like, we're going to make sure that it's contractually obligated. Like, it's going to be in the contract. What they don't say in this article is, though, is it going to be where the creator controls the percentage, or is it going to be where the smart contract written by Yuga Labs and Magic Eden, and I don't even know if it's actually like a cross between both of their development teams, or is it just Yuga Labs people like saying we're pushing this? But nonetheless, like, who actually controls what the percentage amount is? And is it that y'all are just doing this as an introductory thing to get the market up and running, and then in 3 years, you're going to change the terms of service? We don't know. But this is one of those things of, that's why I'm saying it's a question mark of a trend. We've established that royalties is not a hard-coded thing in smart contracts. The industry has already shown us that for more than a year now. Now the question is, if someone does come in with a business model to say, well, we're going to hard code it, who actually is controlling the code for the percentage? That's the question. All right, moving over to this next joint. And so, yeah, like I said, OpenSea launches cross-chain trading on Polygon and Ethereum, which I don't know. OpenSea Pro. So basically, this is a whole thing about how you can do like private sales where it's not being publicized on the front end of the website. I don't know if this is actually a worthwhile thing if you are someone who pays for this particular feature on the OpenSea platform. If it makes sense to you, it makes sense to you because of whatever it is that you're doing. I don't know. How do I say this? And funny enough, I was looking at the what's the thing called, the MetaMask wallet today, and they did a lot of upgrades. And then I realized that, especially with something like this for OpenSea, if you are doing your taxes, do you know you KYC'd your wallet? It didn't. This is gonna sound dumb. This is really gonna sound dumb, y'all. I know, but it didn't click to me until today that if you've been paying your taxes, you KYC'd your MetaMask wallets. Whatever chain you're on, it don't matter. Like, you KYC'd your thing. Um, yeah, I'm just gonna leave it there. But nonetheless, this situation happened. If you're somebody who is a degen in the NFT market, I guess this would be a good thing for you. I don't know. Again, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not a CPA. I'm not your, money person or lawyer. But I guess this makes sense for some people. I would also kind of wonder though, is it one of those whole like wrap situations for how this is crossing over from one side to the next, because they kind of explain it as a bridge thing. But anywho, I'm gonna leave that there. Again, link for this is in the description. If you are a NFT DJ, you might want to, do your due diligence on this. Just saying. All right, so jumping into this story. Oh, this story. All right, so the timing of this is actually funny for how this story works, if that makes sense. So here we are. G20 accepts the here we are. The International Monetary Fund, International Monetary Fund / Financial Stability Board's synthesis report on roadmap to crypto regulation. Now, initially when I read this, I was like, oh wait, they voted on something? So I'm like, all right, well, what did they actually vote on? So I had to go to the G20 site, which is a whole thing to try to figure out what's what on there. Basically, this report came out in September. The G20 that just happened in October was in India, and not everyone showed up. So it isn't actually like everyone was cool with what the IMF and the FSB actually put out. Not everyone showed up. I think it was that China's person didn't show up. So Xi Jinping didn't show up, and then Putin didn't show up, but they sent like representative, if I remember it right. The point of where I'm going with this is I then had to go and look for what the roadmap was. And I need y'all to understand about what the roadmap is, as far as it's a report saying, hey, here's how to deal with cryptocurrency and blockchain adoption to where you keep it in the traditional financial and economic systems under governmental control, under banking control. This is not about economic sovereignty. This is not about people being able to control and facilitate their own banking systems and economic forms of capital. And no, that's not what this is about at all. It is about them keeping everything within the current arrangement of the finance, and the governmental systems or the institutions are the ones steering the ship. I will also point out that I have a link in the description for the actual PDF. It's like 53 pages in total, but it's under 48 pages of actual reading. And then the other thing to note is it's literally just a global version of what the OFAC report was back in 2021. And I also want to point out, the stuff comes out in the same damn timeline. The OFAC report came out in like October or September or something. The initial IMF report came out around the same time too, for the year. The point being is, this stuff doesn't happen in a vacuum. When you start hearing the regulators talk one way, when you start hearing the local financial institutions, JP Morgan, Bank of America, Fidelity and all of them start to say certain things about what their policies are or what they're going to do with a new product or something, the things were literally announced publicly. The question is, were you paying attention? And if you were paying attention, did you get how the stuff connected? So when we hit 2025, 2028 and all of that fun stuff, and 2030, like, it's going to be folks going, oh my God, I can't believe they're doing blah, blah, blah at JP Morgan or Wells Fargo with crypto. And I can't believe they make you do it this way. And you're going to have the folks who go, oh, I remember when. And then people like, but nobody said anything about that. I'm going to call bullshit. And here's why I'm going to call bullshit. Because I'm going to have the videos to be like, yo, I said that back then. King said this. Zay said that. The point being is, it was people letting y'all know what they were saying out publicly. They're literally producing the reports for public access, and people don't go and read the stuff. C-SPAN. I think C-SPAN is one of the most underrated American television channels, where the quote, people we vote for in office literally tell us the things they're going to do. And they talk to the people who are controlling industries and agencies and departments, and they get them on record saying that they either are doing something good or they're doing something bad or they're being incompetent about their job. And most Americans don't know what C-SPAN is. Anywho, I'm getting off my high horse. The point being is, read this joint and you're going to see over the next coming years how this plays out at the local level. It is a general roadmap that doesn't mean it will follow exactly in the course. Of course, they're going to have to make adjustments as, quote, people fight back, as, quote, governments don't necessarily agree on the same thing, as, quote, someone comes up with a more innovative version of the technology. All of that stuff is going to happen, and there's going to be growing pains, 100% going to be growing pains. I have the link that's in the description on this. For those people who are interested in downloading the PDF, it's there for you. All right. Jumping into the next story. HSBC launches tokenization platform for gold markets. All right. So I got another link that's connected to this. The way I did this on the thumbnail was I said that HSBCU used Reggie Middleton's tech for tokenization of gold tokenization. Listen, if you've been in this space for a minute, you remember when Reggie came out with the app for Veritasium, and this is exactly what he did. And they had a company that did the actual physical storage. They had the company that would do the delivery for you if you wanted to get your thing handed, like bar in hand. So it is, yo, listen, I feel like if he don't get a sizable check, y'all, like, I mean, we know to a degree the system is rigged as hell, but man, like this level of blatant, I'm just going to jack your whole idea and not say nothing. Because the other thing to note in this article, they don't actually tell you what blockchain, if it's even a blockchain company, if it's even a true blockchain company, or is it just some like, oh, we came up with something that we will argue is, you know, a variation of distributed ledger technology. But I'm telling you, the way they describe it in here, this is like just what Reggie was doing with Veritasium when he had the app out. If you remember the web app, and it was a mobile app too. And yeah, so I seen this one. I said, I got to throw this in the line. I got to throw this one in there. So shout outs to Reggie and, you know, the things that he's dealing with and trying to push forward. But yeah, HSBC, that's what they're about to do. Other thing to note with this is I have a link to the US debt clock. Where is it at? Let me jump over there right now. Yeah. So this is usdebtclock.org, right? Shout outs to the Simons family, Erica and her husband, and what's his name? What's the dude name? Chief. Because they were talking about this the other day, and I did not know that this happened, okay? So this section right here, there's a reason why I'm bringing it up, because they were talking about this. And they were talking about how, one, what's going on with the silver and, where's that? So the whole thing about the silver and gold ratio for like the now, the 5-year, the time back in 1913, the 10-year, the same thing going on with the gold, and you see how the prices are moving. As you see the numbers right now, this is a live metricing or count. So when you look at it, it might not be the same. The point here is that there are certain sections and columns on here that weren't here not too long ago. Case in point, like I said, what's going on with the gold and silver part, but more so what's going on right here with the crypto. Other thing to note, what it shows as far as what paper to silver ratio is versus paper gold and thing, versus what, and this is actually reworded. This changed. I don't know when it changed because I haven't looked at this in a while, but I definitely know from the last time I've looked at this changed. Other area that caught my eye was the BRICS GDP. That's a relatively new thing that I think had to come into play maybe this year, because we really only started hearing about the whole BRICS overtaking the G20 GDP this year. And it was really like after summertime. So yeah, link for this is in the description. Folks, you can go check that out at your own leisure and bookmark it, because it is definitely something to be aware of. Again, I'm not telling you where to put your funds at, because I'm not a CPA, a lawyer, or any of that fun stuff. I'm just saying you might want to be paying attention, or at least keep a collection of sources of information that you can cross-reference when you need to better understand what is going on out here in this crazy, crazy world. So yeah, that links to that. Jumping over, yeah, that was for that thing with HSBC. and the gold stuff. And then boom, developers on Google Cloud to verify smart contracts with space and time's ZK proof protocol. So if you don't know, ZK proof is basically about being able to, so zero knowledge proof, where you know that a transaction happened, or you know that this is the thing you are looking for, or that you're supposed to move from point A to B, but you don't know the contents of it. In my mind, and I'm not the smartest person in the room, or the sharpest, what is it they say, tool in the tool shed, there's a level of, because it's Google, I am leery, where it's like, wait, so you guys are verifying the content or the content box of data, even though you quote don't know the data? Or am I misunderstanding it to say that you're going, well, we'll verify the smart contract works and it is pulling the correct data that it's supposed to pull. So then you know what the data is, but where does the zero knowledge part come in? And I read this a couple of times. It's not making total sense to me. For the smarter folks out there, I'm just saying, comments are open. Leave me a line, be like, yo, go read this thing. It'll make more sense this way. Or give me a metaphor. I appreciate, right? I don't know if I'm the biggest fan of this, but then again, I'm not using any of the smart contract stuff in this capacity or in this way. But for the folks who are, does it make sense because it's cost effective? Like how, what is it, over 50% of the smart contracts and the back end stuff for Ethereum is on Amazon? If you're running numbers and you're quote a business that's, you know, focused that way, yeah, it makes sense. If you're talking about decentralization and, you know, how to deal with not getting caught up in censorship and all of that stuff, I would argue it doesn't. But nonetheless, this just came out. Google's definitely getting their, they're definitely bunkering down in their position on the blockchain space in general. Granted, they're not pushing a token or a coin or anything, but as far as being a part of the infrastructure, that's the part that's really interesting. They're really bunkering down on being a part of the tool set that you use to analyze or to scrape or to, you know, explore various blockchains. So other things to note there. Again, that actually is that's another one for my techie folks. All right, so this is I'm also, I would count that last story as showing the pattern. Like the pattern is traditional tech will, and for Google in particular, this shows their pattern of behavior of like they're solidifying themselves in this next transition of how the internet will develop, of how information will be analyzed, like will be mined. Like we know smart contracts will be involved. We know blockchain is a part of that. They are positioning themselves very well. Like a, you know what, like I'm gonna say it, it's like a tick. Like it's really digging in there right now. Like they are, that's what they're doing. This is the pattern. That's what it is. Next joint is Web3 firm Trekkw2ks acquires Origins to expand the NFT data offering. So if you remember a couple weeks ago, I had told a story about how it was Bitwage, was it Bitwage or Bitwave, that acquired Gilded, which was the accounting, the crypto based or crypto related accounting firm that had started like before C19. It started before C19, right? And so it was interesting to note when that situation happened, I thought it was a better situation than what it was. The idea being that this company wanted the IP of the other company. The same thing here. This is not just, it might be a trend. It is definitely going to be the pattern going forward, where companies who do not have any relation to blockchain or crypto will just do their, what is the word? Their vertical transitions by just acquiring the IP and or the talent of companies or individuals that were established in the space. And that's what we see here in regards to Origins being acquired by Trekkw2ks. Trekkw2ks is not a crypto related thing. They're based out of Singapore, and they're like, well, we want to make the move, and we'll be out here in the eastern region of the world. What do we do for it? All right, we go with this company. They have they have good what's the word? They have good IP products. And it only will cost us this amount. Other thing to note, they don't say how much it costs. I figure at some point somebody's going to spill the beans on this. What was it? I had another thought about this thing that I cannot remember right now. Hopefully I'll remember it as we're going through the live right here. But nonetheless, this did happen. It just goes to show the pattern of what we'll hear and see more of as we move into the space, as we have more adoption happen, as we get into this next happening. And, you know, the space matures and solidifies and like more regulatory stuff comes down. And it basically boils down to their positioning themselves for when the NFT quote market takes back off again, or like is back on the up. And it's simple business logic, y'all. We might not like the ethics and whatever behind it, but it is definitely simple business logic. Okay, and so jumping on to this next one. This story, where are you? This one, again, this is a tinkerer story. If you somebody who are into the DIY, you like messing around with stuff, this is one of those stories. I had to say though, when I read it, I was like, okay, I get it, but then I had a number of questions. So, researcher successfully syncs Ethereum node on PlayStation 4. So this ain't the old joint. Granted, he did have to use an older version of the software in order to accomplish this, but it also made me wonder this. Are we talking Vitalik's Ethereum as far as Ethereum proof of stake? Because if you were doing proof of work and you had to do the whole thing of syncing the tree, as far as I understood it, it was very, very, very difficult to do a full sync of the tree before we crossed over into the from proof of work into proof of stake, because of how large the Ethereum blockchain history was. And that, like, when you do the syncing for Bitcoin's protocol, it might take you 2 to 3 days, depending on the software version that you're using, like what your internet connection is and stuff like that. 2 to 3 days, 4 maybe max. And this is like on the end of, are you getting all of the data? You're not just doing like the whole header footer thing or the condensed stuff, right? Ethereum, from how I understand it, it's basically it's, what is it, like more than 5 or 8 terabytes now. So to be like, well, you were able to sync everything, and again, that was when it was proof of work. I'm not 100% certain about this proof of stake side of it, so I'm curious as to what was actually synced. Other thing to note is it took them a little bit of work to do. They also don't clarify, like, well, how long were they running this? When did they start the project? But I thought it was worth sharing for my DIY folks, for my more techie folks to know. Back in the day, someone or a group of people were also doing Bitcoin mining on the Xbox, but this is like before I want to say before 2016. The other reason why I highlight this story is just to go with showing, like, if we're talking about this being proof of work, then like, this is dope, this is cool. Are we also talking about, they don't distinguish a couple of things in here that kind of annoy me. But going back to the thing of this being a censorship resistant thing of where anyone can have access to this technology, to this system, to this financial instrument. It's not about your age. It's not about how much money you have right now. Now, granted, this is more of a technical know-how thing, so that technical barrier to entry is where it is. But my point being is, I was drawn to the fact that there was still a level of, hey, you don't need to, quote, come in with a bank load of money in order to be able to take part in this. If you have enough of the wherewithal and the throughput to be able to say, I'm going to figure out how to make this thing work, I'll, go online, do the googly stuff and search what I need to. But this can happen. That's the point of what I'm trying to make with this last story. What I feel is more of a high note to show that this technology can do some really great things. It can definitely lead to a better economic sovereignty and like financial awareness system or culture, right? But at the same time, you got folks who don't agree with that. It is what it is, right? Because we are where we are in the world right now. But I just thought I would share that story. Again, that's for my more techie tinkerer folks. Link for that will be in the description. You can definitely follow that up. Other than that, I would like to say, yeah, that is just about it. So other thing to note is I do another thing called Metaverse to the Other Side with my homeboy 3D, and we talk about techie things, and we talk about specifically the metaverse, no price talk stuff, okay? No price talk. And I've definitely come to the point where I know, like, I'm cool with not being a price talk dude. We got other people on this network that do the price talk stuff. You can follow them and look through their stuff all day. But if you want the techie stuff or the more like, oh, over there conversation, I'm here for you. I'm here with it. But we do stuff like that over on Metaverse the Other Side, specifically focused on metaverses. This last conversation, we had a thing about how we noticed that the information about how the projection or being able to verify the user base of metaverses is being obfuscated through the search engines and through the news articles. Everything is about pumping the either past numbers at you or the projected future numbers, but nobody's really hitting you with the lifetime stuff. I think there's something afoot in the metaverse spaces right now, but that's a whole nother thing. You can find the Twitter space on the Builder DAO account. Link for that is in the description if you want to go back and hear the stuff on that. And so other than that, folks, as I say, have a productive over busy day. If it cannot be a productive day, at least be in a safe place, in a safe space, in a good company. And from one human to the next, that is the best thing that I can wish onto you. Other than that, y'all, until the next one.